Okay, so what we're going to be doing right now is we're going to be installing the CPU on top of the motherboard. We got to be very careful here because there's pins on the back of the CPU that are very delicate. What you don't want to do is you don't want to touch the top of here. You want to keep that very sanitary. So what we're going to do is we're going to flip this lever. Means the motherboard's ready for it. What we're going to do is open this up. What we're going to do, we're going to line up that little triangle you see right there on a little triangle on the board. And all that does, you just plop it right in. Should not take any force. Now all we got to do is just pop that back down and we're good. Okay, what we're going to do now is we are going to take off these mounts so we can apply this CPU cooler on here. So all that means that we need to do is take off these screws. That is if my screwdriver would get these. At the middle. There we go. Okay, those are out. All I gotta do now is apply the CPU cooler. And given the configuration we have right now, all we need to do is turn it this way, over here, and line up the thermal paste on the bottom with the CPU. Now all we need to do is screw this in. And gotta tighten it in a cross pattern. Okay, that's all installed, so all we gotta do now is hook the fan up. And what we have right here is a little slot. Let's plug that right in. Tuck that away. Yep. Okay, so what we're gonna be installing right now is the RAM modules. And they will go in these two slots right here. Every motherboard is kind of different. It wants the slots to be taken up in different ways. Sometimes you'll have the two RAM slots go here or here. In this case, they're right here. So all we do is take these pins and just pegs and push them down. And once we get our RAM out, we have 8 gigabytes of DDR4 clocked at 3200 megahertz. And as you can see, there's these little notches that will line up right in here with these two RAM slots. So what we're going to do is line those slots up so that they fit. See right in there, and even pressure on both sides until we hear that click. We're going to do the same thing again. Make sure they really get in those slots. Of course, I can't do that right now at that angle. There we go. Then, even pressure. There we go. So what we're going to do now is we're going to take this side panel off so we can get into the guts of the case. They're attached by 2 thumb screws on the back. What we do now is just pop it off. And here's our box of screws. And here are all our fancy wires that we're going to get to manage later. Lovely wires. These will all plug in specific spots on the motherboard. Okay, now we'll be installing the rear I/O shield. This is where all your ports will be on the motherboard. And it's important that we install this before we install the motherboard. One side pops out, the other one pops in. Just make sure everything is flush against the back. Like that. There we go. And we are all set. What we're going to be doing now is we're going to be placing the motherboard inside the case. It's a bit of a tight fit. You gotta be very careful not to scratch the back of the motherboard. What we got down here is the placement of the I/O, which can be a little finicky sometimes. Okay, everything is in place. Just gotta make sure that's as flush as it can be against there. Let's see if we can get that a little more. Okay, I think that's as good as we're gonna get. So now, we put the screws in place. And for that we need a screwdriver, and the screws are right over here. Okay. We gotta place it in the these 4 screws in the corners. take my screw. Okay. And place it. This is why having a magnetic screwdriver is awesome. And just screw that one in place. You might need to push this just a little bit more. There we go. There we go, that's much better. Okay, that one's in place. Okay, we got three more we gotta put in place for this side mounts. Okay, two more for the corners. And since that one's easy to reach, I'm just going to go ahead and place it in by hand. And then I'll screw it in. Okay. You don't want to place them down too tight or else you'll end up cracking the motherboard. That's nice. Okay, gonna have to kinda, there we go. Really glad we have this magnetic screwdriver because these things are so hard to deal with when you drop them inside the case, because that will happen. Okay, got those 4 screws in place. Now we're just going to place some more along the sides just for some added stability. Okay, we're going to place this screw right in there, just for some added stability. And got 2 more screws to put in place. Okay, that one's in place. And that one was relatively, unless I pull it out with the magnet again. And there we go. And we are all good there. The motherboard has been installed. Okay, what we will be doing now is plugging in our USB and lights and such. Basically, we're just going to have to follow the manual to the motherboard on this one. So we have our HD LED, which will go in right there. Just make sure I have that all snugged in. Now what we have here is our PLED and negative PLED, and then power reset. And that goes right alongside this. Okay, those pins are in place, so we just got 2 more to set up. And those will go in the back. Right there. And right. You know what, we gotta start over, Marcus. So what we're doing right now is just plugging these cables in. I've already plugged in the 2 really tough cables. And now we just got these little single pin cables, which is our P-LED cables. Just gotta make sure you put those in just right. There we go, that one's in. And now for this one. Okay, we are all set there. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to feed this cable through. This is the USB 3.0 cable, and this connects to the front of the chassis. And just got to be very careful when inserting this. It's a little hard to get it in there, but as you can see, it's in there, very snug, and we're all good with that part.
Yeah.
So we're connecting our HD audio right into the J audio slot. And all that requires is just a little push. There we go, all snug. Okay, so what we're doing now is we're putting the power supply in the case. And since we have a fan right here and an outward ventilation shaft right there, we're going to place it upside down like that, just so there's better cooling on the power supply, because what we don't need inside the system is heat. So that would be, make sure I get this right. Okay. Like that. So I just need to get the screws. I'll be back in a second. Recording?
Yep.
Okay, so now all we gotta do is screw this little plate on back here so that fits in the case. And starting off with the screws not too tight, just so I can get a proper fitting. And now for the last one. There we go. Make sure everything else is down like it should be. Okay, what we're going to be doing now is feeding these cables through as we install our power supply. It's important to do this now because it's really hard to put these back in into the back of the power supply once it's screwed in, and you just don't want to deal with that later. So then it just pops in there. All our connectors are right there, and we just put our screws back in. Thank God for thumb screws. You do not need a screwdriver for these. And we are all secured.
Let's go.
Okay, what we got here now is our 28-pin connector that goes right into the CPU. So we just got to match up these holes, and we should be golden. This is a little tricky right here because this cable needs to bend in a certain way, which isn't very forgiving. There we almost go. Gotta make sure that's all properly connected. Apply even pressure to all parts. Okay, and it's in. Okay, we also have our CPU connector, which we're going to feed from the back up here. If I can find that, there it is. And what we're going to do is we're going to twist that around again to make sure that it lines up nice. And like I said earlier, these don't really like to play nice with the direction they want to go. So all we can really do is this. And it's all in. Yeah, go ahead, stop.
Good.
Okay, so what we went ahead and done is put our back plate on the back of our main hard drive. This will be where our operating system is installed. This is our 128 gig Kingston solid state drive. So what we're going to do, go ahead and plug the data connection cable. And what I'm going to do right now is feed this power cable through the back. If I can. Okay, go ahead, stop recording.
Go.
Okay, so we got our power cable. Go ahead and plug that in along with our data cable. If I can, yeah. There we go. Now everything should fit flushly into. There we go. Now we got our little thumb screw. That'll keep that in place. Okay, now we just need to store our mass storage in here, and that'll consist of us plugging in again our SATA data cable, which you don't put in upside down, and our power cable. And then that will second. There we go. Let me just do the thumb screw again. And I might need to get the screwdriver for this one. That one's pretty snug.
Good.
Yep.
Go.
Okay, so what we're going to be installing next is our graphics card. So in order to do that, we're going to get this spot ready in here. So we're going to hit that pin down. And what we need to do now is get these little thumb screws off. Where's my screwdriver? There it is. And disconnect these, because this is a 2-slot card, so it's going to take up this slot and that slot. So we need to remove those slot holders. Move this aside for just a second. Where'd it go?
Yeah,
Where'd it go?
right there.
Now for the fun part of getting these off, because the screwdriver is a little big for this slot right here, and for some reason they put the screws right there. Okay, and then now for the second one, and the system's actually a lot lighter than you would think. Well, that's what I wanted to do anyway, so that's our little slot. Let's pop out the other one without breaking anything. There we go. Now, all we need to do is put the graphics card in place. We need to remove this sticker before installing it. If I can get that off. Ooh. So satisfying. Okay. Let's go ahead and... oh, forgot about this one little thing right there. The rubber cover for the port. Can't put that in there without that. Oh, I was mistaken. I need one more port. Need one more port out, and I'm going to put the top one back in. I miscalculated that. So actually, I'm just going to move this one to up here. And just screw that back into place. If I can. Okay. Now we can put this in. There we go. And you just apply an even amount of force. Okay, and it's snapped in there all snug. So now, get one of these thumb screws and push it into, where'd my screwdriver go? There it is. push that into there. Making sure everything is secured nicely. Okay, graphics card is all installed. All we need to do now is plug in our PCI Express cable. And what that requires is this. Gotta connect that together and put this. Actually, I'm going to use this part. And what I'm actually going to do now is reroute it to the bottom, because I realize now that this is a bit of a better way to do this. Here, stop recording for a second.
Go.
Okay, now that I've rerouted the cable through this little slot right here, I'm going to go ahead and plug our power into our graphics card. With a little force. There we go. And it's all good. We're done with the internals, so now all that's left is the cable management. Okay, stop recording. Now that we have our GPU in, we can go ahead and put that on right first of all. We can go ahead and put our back plates back on. And we're ready to start with cable management.
Oh, great. Go.
So this cable management so far is pretty bad. So what we're going to do is we're going to take some zip ties in these little notches right here. We're going to grab up all the cables and kind of just get them together in order to do that. There we go. Okay. I had it right before. Stick that through there. Oops, no, I was right before the second time. If I can get it through there. There we go. Okay. Now for all of these miscellaneous cables. Now you see this jumble down here. Well, since we have a lot of room down here because we don't have any hard drives, 3-point-inch drives, what we can do is, it's kind of crude, but we can shove them into here. And it won't cause much of a problem because there doesn't need to be much airflow down here, because it's just the power supply and it has its own ventilation. So many cables with this. There we go. Make sure nothing really overlaps except for under there. And this we can just leave by itself because that's not much of an issue. Now all that's left to do is put the back plate back on. And that is relatively simple. All we do is have this upside down.
Looks like it.
No, that doesn't make any sense because you can only put it this way.
Yeah.
Unless it's your stop recording. Okay, so with a lot of effort and a little bit more zip tying of more cables, we managed to get this back plate back on the case, and everything fits nice and tight. So now we just gotta put this last thumb screw in, then we will put on the glass door panel next. So now all we gotta do is put the side panel back on. We just gotta make sure that lines up as we enter it in, and it does. So now we got thumb screws gotta go back in place. Say these are thumb screws, but it still takes a screwdriver to get them in. Okay, one last thumb screw and we will be almost done with the parts. Okay, one last thing to do, and that is the most satisfying part.
It's done. Yes, I get to turn it on. We forgot to turn on. We forgot to turn on the supply. Okay. That's it.
Oh, it started up.
Look at that. Up.
Look at that.
Woo. Wait for it. Woo! Yes.
Yep. It's all good.
It booted.
2 keyboards, 1 mouse. That doesn't make any. Oh, I guess because we have this.
Yeah,
we have that.
Hey.
Okay.
Oops.
Okay. Now it'll probably prompt us to put. Ooh, hey, we're in the BIOS. Okay.
Oh, nice. I love this BIOS.
Memory. We want this.
Yeah, we want higher.
Our RAM is currently clocked at 3200 megahertz.
So
we want that. And then we want to. Whoa, what's happening with the mouse?
It's probably just because of how high the sensitivity it is.
DRAM frequency. We want to set that to
3200. We're not overclocking this yet.
Advanced DRAM configurations should be at 16. Oh, oops. Yeah, I'll just leave those on auto for now. Advanced overclocking, okay. 3200 megahertz.
Yep. Memory,
DRAM,
try it.
Voltage,
It says memory, try it. What? We're not overclocking this yet, right?
no, okay, so 3200.
3, 3,
no,
3,
we're not gonna do that.
Yeah, not yet.
Okay.
Good? Save and exit. Here, let's see the CPU. Or not. That works too.
Yeah. We just went through the BIOS, and that is for overclocking our RAM.
Yes. I think we have to restart the computer.
It is restarting.
Oh, never mind. I'm an idiot.
We will get our Windows 10 install going.
Plug that sucker in. Or not. Yeah. Might take a try or two.
Come on.
It's working.
Okay, so we got our Windows 10 stick uploading into there. So far, so good. Knock on wood.
Quite literally.
Yeah. Anyway, this portion will take a while, and since I don't want to make this a 10-hour video, I will need to at least shorten it at this point or stop it here. So thank you for watching me build my first computer for my brother.